Hello and welcome to Chess Comedy Books 18. I'm James Pratt and I've got a few recent titles here which I thought you might appreciate having a little look at. The first of these is called Winning Ugly in Chess. Now I'm sure that the author and the publisher realizes that this is not actually a grammatical statement, but playing badly is no excuse for losing, and this is a New in Chess publication. I haven't reviewed many things by New in Chess for a while, but nevertheless, I thought this one was something very special. It's got 336 pages and an index which shows that there's a broad sweep of systems openings involved here. How to fluster your opponent with an opening surprise, it says. There's a game between Charlie Kenner and Shirazi. Who better? Who better? And there's a game between William Ballard and Joseph Fagan. And it's an odds game. Might give up his knight before he even started. That's the way to play, isn't it, really? And there's a game by no less a personage than, as I always like to say, Tony Miles. Vertigo. How do we grasp the ungraspable? We consider it in advance and then make the best of it as we proceed. I suppose life is a bit like that. Chapter 4. How to squeeze something from nothing. And he shows you 1C3. Well, it's not really a Caracan, it doesn't have to be, but it is transpositional. More how to squeeze something from nothing. Rise of the machines, in other words, computers. It's a game here between Robert Fisher and Greenblatt. Well, later we're going to have talk about Greenbecker, but for now, rise of the machines. Let's face it, they are rising more quickly than the British economy. When bunnies attack, bunnies are a polite word for weak players, possibly incurably weak players. Combustion. Why do we play so inspirationally against certain opponents? That's an interesting question. Epics. In other words, longer games, I suppose. There we are. Look. Very deep discussion. It's not all like that, but it has a... That will give you a flavour of what it's like. So it's mostly complete games with analysis, some of which is fairly heavy duty and others is for entertainment and enjoyment. And I think a mixture is a nice balance. There's a game here between two old friends, Larson and Korchnoi. It's a Reti. I'm just hesitating because I wondered whether it's something I needed to draw to your attention, but I don't think so. The book has a cover price of nearly $25. Presume that's US dollars, isn't it? And if you want more information, www.newinchess.com. There it is. I like it very much indeed. Finding equanimity, it says. And it quotes Heraclitus. Well, I know nothing about Heraclitus at all. But here is somebody I do know something about. You know that's Korchnoi. I'll tell you how you know. His name's up here. You'll see Korchnoi's name spelt in different ways in different places. But Victor, he is. And Victor, he stayed until the end of his life. He had a very long chess career. He was born between the wars, and he waged war on the chessboard. My goodness, he did. This presents 61 games, and the last of them, I'm not sure that these are, no, they're not. I was going to say I didn't know whether it's chronological order, but it isn't. 61 games, and the last is between John Nunn, England's John Nunn, and Victor Korchnoi. Victor Korchnoi is a chess legend in a career which has spanned over 60 years. He won countless Grandmaster tournaments, was 4-time Soviet champion. Can't really argue with that, can you? A multi-time World Championship candidate. Yes, he played at Curacao 62. He played in the 68 candidates. He was seeded into the 72 knockout candidates. He qualified for World Championship in 1978 and 1981. So that's quite a run, isn't it? These games are annotated as only a Lakdawala can, in a mixture of styles. Sometimes he puts in light-hearted comments. Other times he asks you a direct question. Other times he tells you the answer. I don't think the idea works out well for black. Those best may lie in the simple. And he just gives a line of analysis. And he quotes, again, it's a game between Korchnoi and Karpov from Murano, 1981. If you've listened to the musical Chess, you'll know that they sing about Murano. Well, it's mentioned here. This is a game played at Baguio City in distant Baguio. And he says that the two players were kicking up a fuss about playing conditions and the appearance of their opponents and people in the audience. And they had hypnotists and flying yogi and all sorts of rubbish. And that was just on the television. And there was even Ray Keane there. As you can see, he starts off with a few diagrams. Some pawn exchanges happening there in the Queen's Gambit. Some of these games I like to think will be known to you already. Here's that weird match between Spassky and Korchnoi from 1977. I can't begin to understand what was in Spassky's mind. Korchnoi played some amazing French defences. He ran out of steam just before the 1981 match when he played in South Africa, and he lost a critical game against Robert Hubner. And it was that, I'm told, I wouldn't have worked it out for myself, that knocked him back. Now here's an interesting little thing. The late Pat Cotter, there I go name dropping again, a Welsh French defense expert, showed me that if you play bishop d7 in that position, it induces a4. And if white doesn't play a4, you can play bishop a4 and you can cause a traffic jam. Nothing life or death struggling, but a traffic jam on white's queen side. In other words, he would have pushed the pawn. And if he can't push the pawn, he can't put his bishop on a3. And if he can't put his bishop on a3, he might have to guard the c pawn with a bishop on d2. And if he can't put his queen on d2 because the bishop's there, blah, blah, blah. If you think that's complex, you try working it out when you're sitting at the board and the clock is ticking and you're playing Victor Korchnoi. Or you're trying to play like Victor Korchnoi, more to the point. Here's Korchnoi beating Fischer. Probably the only time he did beat Bobby, actually. In 1962. And there's the game. As two very young and ambitious grandmasters, They were both of them obviously hoping to get a crack at a World Championship match against Botvinnik. Neither qualified, but both did themselves a bit of good, I like to think. And the repercussions of the cheating allegations that were levied against Geller, Keres, and Petrosian himself were not small, and have run on into the crack of doom. Here we are nearly 60 years later, and I'm still talking about it. Though in a way, and who am I to criticize? I don't really want to. Here's a game played in 2007. Korchnoi probably played more top-level games than anyone else in history. If you look on databases, Korchnoi is not just in four figures, but he just plays all over the show. And he was quite well known for not asking for that much money. He wasn't that, he just, just to cover my expenses, or my wife may be joining me, or what you will. But he wasn't greedy. He didn't milk things for all they're worth. Here's a game between Korchnoi and Spassky, played in 1999. The last time the two of them were due to meet, I think one or other, or both perhaps, forgot. And then they said, would you like to play a game? And they sort of looked at each other and said, well, we haven't prepared anything. And they said, well, would you like to play a friendly game, or maybe just appear in a photograph and not move any pieces? I think that's very civilized. Just appear in a photograph. That's fame, isn't it? The low key. I'm told Korchnoi was, to the last, a very, very bad loser. I did see some tournaments like Phillips and Drew in Hastings where he was playing, and I didn't see at first hand Victor behaving badly, but I'm told that he gets absolutely transparent with anger if he loses. I'll never lose to you again. I can't do the accent. I'll never lose to you again. As you can see, that's the format of the game against the Icelandic. Yes, the Icelandic. I suppose then he was a junior, actually. Here he is playing Tony Miles at Reykjanes 1978. Both of them doing very well that year. The Russians would have put their microscopes on those games after they were played. And here's the 21st game of the 1974 match, that although Victor lost, they played 24 games, which is about twice as many as these days you play in the World Championship, which is normally one game, isn't it, or one move, and then they get very tired. But in those days, you played a slower time limit, and you were there for 3 months in the Hall of Columns with people in the audience whose muffled whispers were so muffled that, well, I think the echoes are still sounding. In other words, there was a lot of interest. Here's an interesting game between Geller and Korchnoi, and it is an Alekhine. I don't associate Victor Korchnoi with the Alekhine defense, or Geller with 1e4, but clearly Victor had something up his sleeve. Possibly his second had put it forward. I don't know who that would have been. Had put an idea in his head, and he thought, yes, I won't waste this. He always had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder as regards openings. When he played with, say, Keane or Steen as younger masters, were prepared with them, is what I'm trying to say. He would start off by playing their systems, and only later on in the match switch across to open Lopez or Frenches and things he knew better than them, or even better than anybody. Slight change of pace now, and I mentioned this just now. The Greenbecker Gambit. I was going through some photographs this morning, and I found a photograph of Ben Graff. Ben Graff is a comparatively new name in chess. It says Ben Graff is a writer, journalist, and corporate affairs professional. He's a regular contributor to Chess and Authors Publish, which is presumably a publication. Is also the author of Find Another Place. He's not a grandmaster, but did draw with one once. Well, Ben, sent me this book, which is about a bloke that goes around setting fire to things. He's deluded, and his lack of reality starts off to be that of the reader, who after all only knows what he's being told, and in the order that Ben Graff lets the information seep out, round that he builds a complex, in my opinion too complex in a way, story. You could say it's sort of like a whodunit, except not. It's also a whydunit, maybe, except not. And chess is throughout. I think the question was raised, if you can't play chess, or you don't know what the rules are, could you read this book in comfort? And the answer is yes, I think you could. You could read it on a long air flight or something like that. I didn't finish it. I read about 80% of it, and then I skipped to the end and read about 4 or 5 pages. I contacted Ben, and I sort of apologized. He's ever such a nice guy. He said, "Oh, that's all right. I know that you did what you could." And I did do what I could. But the fact remains that it's a very unusual book. I think he just put too much in it. He would have done better to have put maybe a little bit more explanation, or somewhat simplified the plot. But maybe I'm wrong. There we are, Ben Graff. The last book I want to review is by way of an apology to Mr. John Upper, whom I don't know. And please don't think that this has anything to do with John Upham. It doesn't. British Chess News is run by him, and some time ago a review appeared under my name. I wrote it, but it was some time ago, which I had done for my blog, and clearly it wasn't really up to the standard that he would have liked. It was too short. Well, to Mr. John Upper, here's the book again. I just think that this is a very detailed 320 pages, small text. I mean, there's 4 pages on one page alone there. Small text. If it was a system which, you say, here's a really good little thing, you play this and it'll see you all right. But I don't think it will see you all right. Black is incredibly cramped. He's just making up a little pattern, putting king side, queen side fianchettos, and basically not even thinking, not even kicking his brain. Once again, all these people may be so talented, they can do this sort of thing, like standing on one leg or something. Or, I don't know. That's an example of the format, some little smiley faces there. Some boxes. The hippopotamus requires little theory. It's the semi-hippopotamuses that need study. In other words, the divergences fairly early on. He's sort of looking at b6, bishop b7, g6, and then f5. This position I have successfully defended many times and even won. De Santis. I was nervous even. Alessio de Santis. A deceptively dangerous universal chess opening system for black. I think what he means is a defense. But he's gone all around the houses to say it. Well, that's fair enough. As you can see, he makes it a bit like a sort of, well, what does he make it like? I ran out of words, didn't I? Stage 1, flash. The first stage makes you use visualization of positions rather than memorizing moves. Well, of course that's good. Here you'll find the basics for playing the hippopotamus straight away, advantages, disadvantages, and a quick outline of the strategy. This is stage 2 of the 3 stages, reflection. introduces you to the study of complete strategies and the problems posed by your opponent, which would probably be rushing into the centre with pawns or going for quick attacks, I suppose, even before black's castles. Well, in this system, you bet your boots, black knows what he's doing, but I can't help thinking that it would be much better to do something else. The third stage will do a detailed study of the theoretical problems, often not known by white either. No, that could be true. This is the part where the semi-hippopotamuses predominate, because these come about to counter specific ideas by white. In other words, you have to exercise a little flexibility. Well, that's no hardship, is it? And that is also what you should want to do in most given setups. I don't know anything about the author. It says he's a FIDE master and one of the best known and most successful chess authors of Italy. Well, that's no small thing, is it? There he is. There we go. And I dedicate the last 5 minutes looking at the book on the hippo to Mr. John Upper. Finally, a word to Mr. Jarek Boniecki, with an apology if I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, but I've written it down here on a little note. When I was reviewing children's books, which I did recently on Chess Comedy Books 16, I think it was. This is 18. I mentioned The Chess Apprentice by Bott and Morrison, and I also mentioned More Chess for Children, which is a slightly more up-to-date book, both of them about 60 years old, by Bott and Morrison, same guys. But what I didn't spot was that these are exactly the same books. I apologize for not spotting it. I did spot, actually, the introductions were the same by Harry Golombek. Well, I'm not blaming Harry, and I'm thanking Jarek for contacting me and giving me the wink, giving me an elbow and saying, come on, it's the same thing, isn't it? And I had to backpedal and say, yes, it is. I just didn't spot that. I've got all 3 books, Chess for Children, More Chess for Children, and The Chess Apprentice. And let me say ad nauseum, and also for the last time for the moment, I recommend all 3. Thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed this. It's Friday evening. I'm reasonably tired after a slightly different week, difficult week. And also, it's freezing cold outside, and I plucked up the courage and went shopping. I've been James Pratt, and you haven't. Mm-hmm.